All right, we are recording this on uh, Tuesday, the 20th of August. And I said there's going to be a session about news agency of the future, but what I want to start is back in 2005 and just really quickly go to a presentation I gave at the Connections Conference in 2005. Because that's 19 years ago, and what were we saying then about navigating change in news agencies? Back then, I was talking about how our channel had traffic coming from these core, what I would now call legacy categories: newspapers, lotteries, magazines, cards, stationery, even then tobacco. Um, and things were changing. We were seeing online advertising and things like that getting into our channel. But this guy, Orville Schell, who was the dean of at the University of California at Berkeley's journalism school, I really love this quote. The Roman Empire that was mass media is breaking up, and we're entering an almost feudal period where there will be many more centers of power and influence. Why that matters is because our channel was created by this Roman Empire. We began as a channel to distribute news and information. Around that same time, back in January 2005, Arthur Sulzberger said that within our lifetime, distribution of news information is going to shift to broadband. And then Rupert Murdoch on April 13, speaking at the Association of News Editors, said that we've been complacent. I didn't do as much as I should have after all the excitement of the late 1990s. I suspect many of you in this room did the same, quietly hoping that this thing called digital revolution would just limp along. Rupert Murdoch recently was quoted saying that he thinks newspapers probably have 5 years or less left in them. So back then, excuse me, in 2005, our channel was looking at declines, looking at declining circulation of papers, looking at people moving online. And I was sharing this information, excuse me, at this conference. And back then I was looking at benchmark data of how profitable or not news agencies are, comparing high street businesses versus rural and regional and shopping centre businesses. Looking at that recently, at that 2005 data, back to and considering where we're at today, things haven't changed that much. You know, Rural and regional businesses are still much better than the high street businesses. Average sale value has gone up, average item value has gone up, but our businesses are still reasonably similar. And so looking back at 2005, I think, we've spent a lot of time in our channel over the last 19 years not doing much. So if we look at it today, look at 2024 and what our situation is. We have 2,800 news agencies in Australia today. We've seen 230 news agencies close in the last 12 months. And so I went to ChatGPT and I went to Google Gemini, both AI platforms, large language models, and I said, what's the future of the Australian news agency? And AI says, and I'll quote this: while the decline in print media has posed significant challenges, many news agents have adapted and diversified their offerings to remain competitive. Now, I like the sound of that, but I don't agree with the many. I think many news agents haven't adapted and haven't diversified. The historically relevant categories of papers, magazines, stationery, lotteries, and cards are still relevant in news agencies today. But unfortunately, a lot of retailers are still relying on them too much. If we look at where we're at right now, paper sales are declining, over-the-counter paper sales declining by 11% year on year, magazines declining by 11% year on year, card sales are flat, stationery sales are flat. The difference between country and city news agencies is considerable, and the best situated news agent today is regional Australia, where you've got a population of 2,000 or more. The worst situated news agents are the ones that are in shopping malls, in capital city shopping malls. They're the ones that are really struggling a lot. Looking at what people are doing, searching for online is interesting because right now we have 240,000 searches in Australia every month for newsagent or news agency. So 240,000 times people are looking for our types of businesses and they're asking Google about our types of businesses. There are 40,000 searches for carb shops. There are 340,000 searches for bookshops, 390,000 searches for pet shops. But interestingly, it's products people are looking for. So 240,000 searches for news agency, but almost 600,000 searches for birthday cards. So people are looking for an outcome, or 300,000 searches for stationery and where to buy stationery. So they're not thinking of news agency, they're thinking of products that they want to buy. And we get hung up, I think, on our shingle, thinking about what our shingle is. When people are searching for news agencies, the questions that they're asking, looking at current search data, is, do you have the latest issue of whatever magazine? Or do you stock this particular product? Do you sell lottery tickets? Do you have greeting cards for, and they name an occasion? Do you offer photocopying services? Do you send parcels? Do you have a fax machine? You know, there are 50,000 searches a month, people looking for a news agency with a fax machine, which surprises me. But when it comes to greeting cards, people are searching very specifically. What thank you cards do you have? What anniversary cards do you have? What baby shower cards do you have? What wedding cards do you have? Most newsagents in Australia, through their online presences, don't answer those questions. My point about all of this search data is what people are searching for. Products matter more than the shingle. And I think we have to think about that in the context of how we present our businesses. We have to think about what people are searching for as opposed to the name of our business or our type of business. They're searching for product type outcomes. I think the shingle itself really doesn't matter. The target category opportunities that we have in our channel come from books, coffee, gifts, homewares, toys, and pet, because we see those as all popular categories, but they're also categories from businesses that themselves are challenged. Pet shops are closing, bookshops are closing, coffee shops are always opening and closing. Local gift shops are excellent targets for us in our businesses if we want to compete with a local business and take them down. We've got to think about this in the context of what brings people to our businesses today. Because right now, too many newsagents bring people in by the range of magazines they have, the papers they have, the lottery tickets they sell, and the stationery. And that's not a future. I don't think that's a future at all. I think the news agency future feels different every time shoppers visit. It attracts shoppers outside legacy products and categories. It has a good social media presence. It's got a good Google business profile. A good news agency of the future is going to be online, and a good news agency of the future is going to change weekly. And that's where it becomes a challenge, because news agents as agents tend to not do those things. I think in a practical sense, for news agents to have a future, they've got to stop doing what's not profitable. If you're not making money from it, don't do it. That may seem like a motherhood statement, but I know of news agents today who are doing things that aren't profitable. I think we've got to declutter our businesses. We've got to create space. I think we've got to focus on margin dollars. Selling one item for $500 with a GP of 50% is far more valuable than selling 100 items at $5 and a 25% GP. So you sell that higher priced item and sell fewer of those, and you're going to make more money. And when thinking about that, I think news agents have got to be drawn to or think about what's not going to work in their businesses. Because I think what's not going to work is probably what is going to work, and that's what a lot of people discover. I want to just quickly show some photos from a reference perspective, because these photos tell a story. I've tried to hide the identity of the business, but this is from a news agency. The photo was taken a few days ago. And this is a dying news agency. That magazine unit right down the middle is absolutely a waste of money. You've got the magazine down the middle, you've got the stationery on the left, you've got magazines on the right-hand side, you've got cards over on the far wall. This business is really, really old school. I took over a news agency in Malvern just over 3 years ago, and this is what the front of it looked the morning of the takeover. Now, this is what a lot of news agencies look like today. There are a few things that I would say about this. First of all, to show the irrelevance of a shingle, back then this was a Newspower business, and it was using a version of the Newspower logo that I think was several generations old. The front window, all of the real estate on the front window was about promoting magazines from which we make 25%. Just inside the front door was a drinks fridge and an ice cream fridge. This business was selling 5,000 ice creams, $5,000 worth of ice creams over a year. It was selling $8,000 worth of drinks over a year. Yet those two things occupied the best real estate in the business. The business was successful, but not as successful as it could be. It had these really old school things, this old school look and feel about it. The counter had all of this old style confectionery. And none of that works for the business. None of that separates the business away from being what it could be. Not long after we took over, we started to create more interesting look and feel. Instead of the newspaper stand at the front, we went with colour-themed displays. And customers really reacted well to that, even though we were fairly small at making changes. You go and have a look at this business from Serena in Queensland. This is what greeted me when I stepped inside the front of the shop. A little further in, you see this awesome range of homewares. Doesn't look anything like a news agency. You go and look at this business in Western Australia. There's a nook offering a play space for kids to play with toys and games and things like that. At the counter, they've got leather bags and various other products. Doesn't look anything like a news agency. Or this business in Mount Morgan, where they're using found objects from local farms to create interesting visual merchandising displays. They've got an awesome coffee business located within the business. Or this business in Ulverston, where they've created this wonderful black back wall as a beautiful framing of the gifts that they happen to sell within the business. And then our Mount Waverley business that doesn't look anything like a news agency, and it doesn't sell magazines. These are examples, I think, of what the news agency of the future can look like, and that is nothing like a news agency. The real question that people are asking, and the real question that people are wondering about in their businesses is, what does the news agency of the future look like? How do I get there? And it's going to be different for everybody. Every single business is going to have a different approach. Every single business is going to have a different purpose. If you're asking the question, it means you've got to stop doing what you're doing today, I think. It means you've got to create a business that doesn't fit within a channel. I don't think the channel as a channel has a future. And that's part of the problem, because we've got some really lousy news agents in the channel that we tend to be judged by. And if there was a way to exit them from the channel, then I would happily do that, because I'd rather be judged by retailers who are innovating, retailers who are having fun, retailers who are creating shops that are really interesting and enticing. The problem we have is that Australians think of us as these other businesses. And that's the big difficulty about the future. So I think all of us who are changing our businesses need to be more aggressive in our changes and need to be more public in talking about the changes that we're making. There are no rules about how far we go. There are no guidelines as to what we can and can't do. And I think we've got to stop imposing rules upon ourselves. We've got to stop listening to suppliers who say, oh, do this display and you'll get in the running to win piece of $1,000 that we're giving away to news agents who do a display for our products. Those sort of displays are lazy by suppliers, and I don't think they make any money for our businesses. I think the most interesting thing we can do is to break free from tradition and break free from the stuff that's been holding the channel back for such a long time. If you go and look at a product category like greeting cards, greeting cards are a traditional category, but they're a category that we underperform in. We have cards in our shops. Typically, our cards are located in a card department, and typically we're only pitching cards to people who come and buy cards as a destination purchase. We should be pitching cards at the counter. We should be pitching cards inside the front door. We should be pitching cards as customers leave our shop. And we should be offering cards that are unique, that are fresh and engaging and enticing. And we do that by engaging with the category ourselves and not relying on a supplier to take care of it for us. The shop we took over in Malvern, they had cards in there for a supplier. They'd been there for 10 or 15 years. Their sales were good. We took over and grew card sales by 25% by doing these things that I'm talking about. And so it makes that business more profitable, which gives us better resources for further growing the business. And this is where we find our future, by being engaged like that and operating as retailers rather than as shopkeepers and rather than as agents. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Our future as a channel is going to be dependent on us being smarter in the way we run our businesses. You know, when I would do these sessions 15, 20 years ago, they'd go on for a couple of hours, and it was really about trying to get newsagents to take that first step to sell gifts when most of them weren't selling gifts. The thing today is trying to get newsagents selling $500 items, $1,000 items, as some newsagents do, and believe in themselves that they can do that. Because it doesn't matter where you are. You've got people who will come into your shop when they see something that's interesting and not take any notice of the shingle that might happen to be above the front door of the business. And I think that's what the future is about. So the news agency of the future isn't about a news agency at all. It's about the retail business that you decide yours is going to be, how you cast it, how you make it look. And I think that's what matters the most. The news agency of the future is not about the channel. It's about the individual businesses and how you connect with your local community. Tim, did you bring some questions?
Look, I don't know if I've really brought any questions. I guess I had a bit of a, thought about what this session was going to be about beforehand, and I just made a couple of notes on, I guess, some of the diversification I've seen in the meetings I've had with news agents over the last, 5 to 10 years,
Yep.
and even more recently in the last 1 to 2. And there's been, I don't know, I guess even outside of products, like we've seen some news agents go into things like, I had a business put us in the other day that they had it was a news agency, but they were going into phone repair as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one that does IT services out of the news agency as well. So, while, products is certainly evolving, like you said, with, some stores seeing homewares, even I saw cake supplies in a
Yep.
business the other day, the news agency. Like, products are certainly diversifying, but so, so are the services that come along with it.
I know you like your gadgets, and
I do, yeah.
I was talking to a news agent the other day. They sold 6 e-bikes at $2,800 each Christmas time last year.
Yeah, and you'd never think like to see that in a store like that, but you put something like that by the front, like, yeah, you're going to move them.
Yeah, it makes a big, big difference. Shelley, I don't know if you can hear us, but you guys have got an incredible range of homewares in your shop. And, you have people who will buy these, not expecting to see them in a news agency.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Well, especially from one of those photos, you had the fry pans.
Yeah.
Like they're the Solid Technics, and they range from $100 up to $400.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that walk in to buy a lotto ticket or pick up a parcel and walk out with a $300-400 pan unexpectedly is really good.
And the mindset to decide to stock that, thinking back to Shelley of 23 years ago when she was first starting out as a retailer, that's a big shift, isn't it?
Yeah, not a chance. Well, I think we mentioned in our video 2005, like we bought it 2001. So 2005, we did a shop fit.
Yep.
And the shop fitter at the time suggested putting in a 2-meter wide giftware display. And we thought that was a huge gamble. We thought news agents don't sell giftware. Like, oh my God, we had massive, massive magazines. We thought, all right, we'll give it a whirl and see what happens.
And
yeah.
And so that then kind of leads you on a path. But the thing is, isn't it true that we don't know what we don't know?
Yes.
We don't know if something's going to work. I mean, I talked to a news agent the other day. They're doing $120,000 a year in clothing, just in clothing. That's a town with a population of 5,000. You're in a town population, I think, under 5,000. And homewares and gifts are big for you. We know, like Mount Morgan population 2,000. We know that coffee is very big for them. And this is the thing. How do you get someone to realize that they can take these steps? I mean, it's $1 million question, and it's not an easy question to answer. So,
No.
and I'm not expecting an answer, but it's not an easy question to answer.
Yeah.
So
I do. Can I just make a comment, like talking about lotto and magazines and that sort of product? The viewpoint we have is those two suppliers, so to speak, pay us to sell their product. They don't pay us to promote their product. So, like, I think this leads back to one of your topics on your blog about not promoting lotto magazines on your social media. Like, everyone knows that's what you have. And I think those companies make enough money from us having their product that they can pay for their own advertising. Yeah, so I suppose that's the viewpoint. And it's return on effort too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you're not going to disrespect magazines or lotteries. You'll serve their customers well, and you'll do everything you need to do to be successful with them. But the reality is, in terms of the money that you want to make from your business to have the future life that you want to have, it's going to come from these higher margin items and higher ticket price point items too, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that makes a big difference. 2,800 newsagents today. We'll lose another 200 through the course of 2024 and probably another 200 next year. I was talking to a supplier the other day. We both agree the channel will probably settle at around 2,000 newsagents. But we've got to stop calling them that because that's not going to be the reference point. I didn't want this to go on for too long. All I would say is that in your case, Shelley, your newsagents of the future is what you and Mark are creating for yourselves. And I think, Tim, to your point, it's about whatever a business can be locally without the constraints of what you think the shingle itself should be. We shouldn't be defined by what people expect from us, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully somebody watches this and it's useful. And hopefully it gets somewhere. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.